Donald Trump is now fundraising off the attack, and President Biden is planning to resume campaigning on Tuesday after canceling an event tomorrow. The FBI said today that threats of political violence are increasing. They are monitoring online chatter. I want to bring in our political team for a look at what this means for this presidential race. Let's start with Robert Costa. And Robert, what are you hearing from the Trump campaign tonight?
Former President Trump, Nora, has a major decision to make within the next 24 hours. Who is he going to put on the Republican ticket as his running mate? The vice presidential selection expected to be known sometime by Monday night, maybe Tuesday morning at the latest, based on my latest conversations with people close to former President Trump. At the top of the list, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, who now has an increased security presence outside of his home, though that does not necessarily signal in any way he's the pick. It's something we have picked up at CBS News. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, as well as Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, though we've been told that former President Trump has discussed more than a dozen names in the past week as he mulls that final decision. We're all waiting, though, to see if an offer has formally been made. No word yet on that.
And Robert, one surprise, Nikki Haley, the former UN ambassador who was campaigning hard for the Republican nomination, recently released her delegates, was not expected to speak here, is now slated to speak. What does that tell us?
I was with former Ambassador Haley when she was in the final days of her campaign. She was making overtures to traditional Republicans, and many of them across the country continued to vote for her in Republican primaries, even after she suspended her campaign. For her to come to this convention, not just to release her delegates, but to give a speech, is a real boost for the Trump campaign at a crucial time where they want to consolidate Republican support across the country, especially those Republicans who might be wary of former President Trump's conduct, thinking about his legal challenges in particular.
Robert Costa, thank you so much. Now I want to bring in senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe and our chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett. Ed, on that note, Trump is now fundraising off of this assassination attempt. What are the pitches?
I mean, among other things, he's basically saying that he loves his support. I will always love you for supporting me. Unity, peace, MAGA. And he sent at least 3 or 4 of these today, over the course of the day, as he continues to recover and talk to supporters. This creates an awkward time in American politics. We now know, for example, the president, while he has suspended his advertising for the weekend, while he postponed a visit on Monday to Texas, is essentially going to resume campaigning on Tuesday by going out to Nevada, keeping to a schedule that has him stopping by the NAACP and another Latino civil rights group to talk about voting rights and other concerns in the black and brown communities. And you will see the campaigning essentially resume. He will begin with advertising. He'll sort of echo what he said tonight, which is that there can be a substantive debate about the issues in this country, and it can be done peacefully. We also heard today that the heads of the Democratic and Republican parties spoke to each other last night to also talk about, can we keep the temperature down? Can we try to help quell the violence or the threats of violence and hope that, you know, the next 3 months of this campaign are somewhat peaceful. But you talk to Democrats today, those that are willing to talk, and they concede the next few days are going to be quite perilous for them from a crass political perspective because we've never seen this before. In fact, tonight, the Biden campaign chief, Jen O'Malley Dillon, saying that much like the beginnings of the pandemic 4 years ago, we may be entering a period where things are just so unchartable in terms of how it is one can campaign and reach Americans at a time of such rancor.
All right. The president in the Oval Office address telling people it's time to lower the temperature in our politics, and we have a responsibility to cool things down. If you want to take action at the ballot box.
Precisely, Nora. And politics in our country is frequently interesting. It is rarely riveting. It will be riveting for the next 4 days here in Milwaukee. People who are not necessarily drawn to politics are going to want to watch this convention to see what former President Trump does, how often he appears here, what is his stylistic approach, what is his rhetorical approach, and what signals do the rest of the Republicans who are here cheering him on take from his demeanor, his attitude, and his tone. All that is going to be sifted anew in light of this traumatic, tragic experience on Saturday that will echo through the country, not just for the next few days, but for the next few weeks. And quickly about Nikki Haley. In talking to the Trump campaign, it was important in this moment, they said, to emphasize in a way that was unexpected, this call for unity within the party. Bring everyone here, even a sharp detractor of former President Trump, in this moment to say, everyone is welcome. We are all united as Republicans, and we will support former President Trump in this moment of not only survival and duress, but progress toward the future.
And not only is it about unity, resolve is a word I heard several times today. Talked to one senior party operative who's been at conventions like this since the 1970s. He says, I've never seen people so resolved, so focused on winning in November, believing that what transpired yesterday can really slingshot the party into some kind of a victory. And the other thing he pointed out, he said, there has been so little chatter now, not even that much interest or concern about who he picks as his running mate, because there's this belief that whoever it is, it may not matter, he may be able to pull this off.
I want to bring in political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns, who is outside here where the Republican National Convention is being held. And Caitlin, I know you have an update on some of the security precautions that are being taken. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Nora, as you can see behind me, there are barricades up, and there are 2 security zones guarding this area. What you see behind me, that's what's known as the red zone or the hard zone. That is protected by Secret Service. Where I'm standing is still part of the broader security perimeter outside the convention, but this is what's known as the soft zone or the yellow zone. What's significant here, Nora, is that Wisconsin is actually an open carry state, and firearms are allowed where I'm standing right now. They are not allowed behind those gates behind me because that's protected by Secret Service. But Wisconsin state law prohibits the city of Milwaukee or local jurisdictions from banning firearms. The Secret Service protects that area, so they are not allowed there, but they are allowed here. And that has come up. I was at a Secret Service briefing earlier today, and the Secret Service overseeing this convention where about 50,000 people are expected to come said they have no plans to expand that Secret Service perimeter, that red zone, and that there are no real threats at this point. Nora.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you. Also want to bring in Scott McFarland because he is still in Butler, Pennsylvania. He was there covering the rally where there was that attempted assassination attempt. And Scott, what's the community talking about tonight?
Nora, this transcends politics here. Butler County wants to ensure nobody else has anything close to a shared experience. And they're talking about their children. Kids already have to deal with lockdown drills and worry about school shootings. We as parents have to warn them about who they talk to in their own neighborhoods, what they see on a computer. And now we have to explain those images and this tragedy to children. There's talk about summoning our better angels. It is modeling better behavior for our children and ensuring they don't have this worry too. They should be enjoying the joyful periods of their lives.
Scott McFarland, thank you for your coverage over the past day. We appreciate it. Finally tonight, the last 24 hours have been one of the most unnerving in recent American history. A presidential candidate, the victim of an assassination attempt. This is something many have never witnessed before. On Saturday, the political rhetoric turned violence. We do not yet know what the shooter's motive was, and we may never get all the answers. But one of the questions tonight, could this be an inflection point in the country's history? For 2 sides of the aisle who may not agree on much, there's one theme we've seen since last night's events. It's time to turn down the heat on the rhetoric, with both candidates for president calling for unity. Now, earlier tonight in a rare Oval Office address, President Biden called on Americans to cool tensions. He told voters to come together and resolve differences at the ballot box, not with bullets. With 114 days left until the election, some lawmakers are reminding the country it is important to remember we are Americans first, not Democrats, not Republicans, Americans.